Alrighty guys, on this here episode of Get People Into, we're going to be discussing the much loved and super nerdy Dungeons and Dragons. My goal of this here video is to get you and your friends into D&D. D&D is a fantasy RPG in which the story for each campaign is decided entirely by the players, with most of the grander design falling to a single person called the DM/GM, which is the Dungeon Master and Game Master respectively. The DM isn't a player per se, but acts instead as the pseudo-god of your adventure, deciding what happens, when it happens, etc. Controlling every detail of the world down to the NPCs in a town and their interactions with the player. This design can have varying degrees of complexity and can be as complex or simplified as the DM and players choose, depending on preference. And all of the information required to build the story and world are contained within the books, but we'll get back to those later. Now that I've talked about how the DM can influence the game, I think it's time we got to the player's influence. The players are the main protagonists of the story the DM builds, and have a massive array of customization options to add flavor to the story. These include race, class, and alignment, as well as some more minor things like items and backgrounds, for example, but we'll focus on the main topics. As you can see, D&D has a long list of playable races, all of which have some varying degree of impact on how your story is going to play out. Each race has its individual strengths and weaknesses, as well as racial bonuses, which is basically just throws a couple points and a few of your stats. A lot of DMs tend to ignore race for the most part, except for, of course, the bonuses you get to your stats. It's normally used for like flavor purposes, like maybe there's an NPC that doesn't like tieflings or something, just spice it up a little bit. I'd say probably the biggest effect race has is it can help you determine what class you want to pick, because the bonuses you get can really give you a little extra oomph when you want to pick that class, which brings us to, of course, this is the total list of classes for the entirety of D&D 5e. Each class has its own unique and complex ability and subclass system. A lot of it is super complicated. I'm not going to bother going into it in this video, but I will give an example. The Cleric is your classic priest character. Heal your allies and rain holy fury on your enemies. It benefits from wisdom as its main stat, meaning that picking a race with a wisdom modifier would be of great benefit in making your heals and attacks as potent as possible. The Cleric has a huge list of subclasses, but a personal favorite of mine is the Light Domain subclass. With this subclass, your Cleric unlocks more fire and, go figure, light-themed abilities, leading to massive damage and massive heals. A close relative to the Cleric is the Paladin, which is essentially the melee form of a Cleric, but unlike the Cleric, the Paladin must stick to a very specific rule set and alignment, which brings us to... Alignment is basically the morality of your character. And like I mentioned earlier, the Paladin is a perfect example. The Paladin can only use one alignment according to the rules, that is, and that is lawful good. Meaning that when playing a paladin, your character must always follow the law and do the right thing no matter the consequences. If you as the player fail to do this, the DM can decide that you have failed the duties of a paladin and make you take an alignment change, thus removing your ability to be a paladin. Alignment is largely ignored these days in efforts to increase the amount of choice the players have, and is mostly used to make role-playing more enjoyable. Moving on from characters, we have the different editions of D&D. D&D has been around for a while, since the 70s, and as you can expect, it's gone through some changes. Every once in a while a new edition will be released, meaning rule updates and tweaks as well as some new content. There are currently 5 editions of D&D, and all of the information in this video has been about D&D 5e or Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Each different edition consists of the core books and any different additional books they decide to make later. These books will contain all of the items, monsters, races, classes, and general information your DM will need to create the campaign and your players will need to create their characters. I've been playing D&D now for about 5 or 6 years with the same group of friends, and I've had a blast the entire time. Every week when we get together, we get some pizza and hang out for 5 hours and play through that week's session. You'd think that in all that time I'd get bored, but you'd be wrong. Every session brings something new, and in 5 years I've never seen the same thing twice. From dungeon crawling to gladiator combat, D&D offers endless playtime, creativity, and flexibility, all in the pursuit of having fun. There have been numerous times when I felt so powerful and awesome, like this one time I punched a shark so hard it literally exploded. And another time I got a magical shield that I could make fly around and cast spells from it, so I made it into a holy predator drone. If you're looking for a fun, replayable experience for you and your friends, then this is the game for you. And if you think this game is for nerds, then you are probably the exact kind of person that would enjoy this game the most. And now for the final act, how to get someone into it. Starting off simple, just ask. Simple and easy. Most people will play it with their friends if you just ask nicely without trying to twist their arm into playing it with you. The second way is to find a local group that plays and try to join up with them. Once you know what you're doing, ask if your buddy can join and drag them along. It's a lot easier to join a group when you know that the people you're playing with know what they're doing. The third way is a little more subtle, and that's just to mention it every once in a while, more and more often, until they get curious about the game themselves. Beating someone over the head with an idea can be pretty effective. The fourth example is in regards to someone being stubborn, not wanting to play with you or not wanting to play in general. The best way to deal with that is to just make them jealous. Tell them how much fun you're having, tell them how much fun you and your other group members are having. Eventually they'll wear themselves down and get jealous and go ahead and join you. The fifth and most effective way to get someone to join is just say please. A simple please can do it sometimes. I'm not saying beg, but just look them in the eye and say something along the lines of, listen, it's a fun game, I know you'll enjoy it, and it would mean a lot to me if you could please try it out. Being direct with the issue is usually the best course of action. Keep in mind, these are not 100% guarantees. These are just some examples of how I got my friends into it. At the end of the day, if someone doesn't want to do something, you can't force it on them or they will hate it even more. On the bright side though, most people will be willing to try it based simply off the fact that they're your friend. And at the end of the day, it's important to remember that if you're interested in it, there's a good chance your friends will be too. Like attracts like. Alrighty guys, thanks for watching. I've got a few videos lined up while the channel gets off its feet. I would love any feedback you have on this video or suggestions for new ones if, time permits it. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.